Cartomancy of the Beatles. Analysis of the Yellow Submarine playing card deck. The Beatle Beast. On page 93 of the Memoirs of Billy Shears, we are shown this drawing made by John Lennon in 1967. It is a depiction of the four-headed biblical Beatles beast. The four heads show a horse, switched out from a bull, a man, a lion, and an eagle, which were based on Revelation 4:7. They are also the four evangelist symbols of Luke, Matthew, Mark, and John, respectively. George Harrison is the dark horse or black knight in chess. This is also reflected in his Dark Horse record label, album, and song. The club's symbol, from a playing card deck, is seen in his eyes. We are reminded in Memoirs to think back to his time playing in clubs with John at the beginning. By 1967, they were the only original members of the Beatles. In Cartomancy, the suit of clubs is synonymous with the wands in a tarot deck. Ringo is shown as a chess piece called a rook. The R and O in Ringo link into the chess piece name, which looks like a castle. A rook is also a bird, which links to the eagle, the fourth of the beasts of Revelation, 4:7. Ironically, in Christian iconology, the eagle represents John the Evangelist. Ringo was regarded as the heart of the band by its members because of his good heart and loving nature. Memoirs says that Ringo kept the heart in the Beatles' castle. In John's drawing, Ringo is also shown with a heart on his wing. He is connected to the heart suit in a playing card deck. In Cartomancy, the suit of hearts are synonymous to the cups in a tarot deck. John Lennon is shown as the lion of Revelation 4:7. John is also the bishop chess piece. In Memoirs, John is described as the magical wizard who started the Beatles. In this drawing, he is the most godly figure, just as he was on the cover of Abbey Road. On his bishop's mitre, we see the diamond symbol from a playing card deck. This connects him to his song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and also the pentacles in a tarot deck. Paul McCartney is shown as the creature with a man's face from Revelation 4:7. Paul is the king. Billy, his replacement, is the queen. The spade symbol on his hat connects Paul to the spade suit in a playing card deck and the swords in a tarot deck. Love is written over the top of their heads, which is connected to the shape of the movements made by each chess piece. George's Dark Knight moves in an L shape. Billy's halo O, above his head, shows the circumnavigating movements of the Queen. John's V shape is shared with the two diagonal paths of the bishop in chess. Ringo's E illustrates the horizontal or vertical movements of the rook. The word love is also indicated by the hand positions of the Beatles on the back of the Sgt. Pepper album. John wrote the word checkmate under the drawing because Paul, their king, is dead. This is the commonly held meaning of the term in chess. The Yellow Submarine playing cards. On page 94 of Memoirs, we have this footnote. In the Beatles' Yellow Submarine playing cards, the Fab Four each dominate one suit and are featured as its king and ace. The suits are the same as in John's picture. George is the king and ace of clubs, or wands. Paul is of spades, or swords. John is of diamonds, or pentacles. And Ringo is of hearts, or cups. Know your four kings and aces. This footnote is also accompanied by this image of Paul as the ace of spades from the 2004 Yellow Submarine card deck. We are now going to look at the meanings of the kings and aces in Cartomancy, plus their corresponding meanings in the Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth tarot decks. Firstly, though, we must take a look at the Kabbalah Tree of Life. So here is the Kabbalah Tree of Life. It has 10 discs, or sethera, connected by 22 paths. The sethera correspond to the 10 number cards in either a playing card deck or a tarot deck. The 22 pathways between the sethera correspond to the 22 cards of the major arcana. And so at the top there is Kether, which is crown, and it corresponds to the 4 aces. The aces are representative of 4 basic elements in their raw potential form. On the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot cards, they are presented as though from a divine source through a cloud. The Ace of Wands is the root of the powers of fire. The Ace of Cups is the root of the powers of water. The Ace of Swords is the root of the powers of air. And the Ace of Pentacles, or discs in the Thoth set, is the root of the powers of earth. The Chokhmah, or wisdom, is the second sethera on the top right-hand side. It corresponds to the 4 twos in a deck, but also the kings. It shows the elements are now redefined in their purest, most harmonious form. The Two of Wands connects to the idea of choice in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or domination in the Thoth deck. The Two of Cups in either deck corresponds to the idea of love. The Two of Swords connects to the idea of decision in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or peace in the Thoth deck. The Two of Pentacles corresponds to the idea of balance in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and the Two of Discs corresponds to the idea of change in the Thoth deck. Here is the first of the Yellow Submarine playing cards, and here we have George as the King of Clubs. In Cartomancy, the King of Clubs is a prosperous, reliable man. He is authoritative and someone who provides trusted advice. He is also described as upright, faithful, and affectionate in disposition, as well as generous, honest, and open. I think George fundamentally wanted to be honest and hated having to play the game of the Beatle myth. One example of this is at the end of the 1995 anthology TV series. The strain particularly shows after spending the day filming with Billy and Ringo. With a passive-aggressive joke, he concludes the day by saying, "Well, that's good. I don't have to see you for another 40 years. The dominating colour of this card is red, because the clubs are connected to the fire signs of the zodiac: Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. George as the King of Wands. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, the King of Wands is connected to the fire sign Aries. The card's ruling celestial body is the Sun. The Sun evokes ideas of the conscious mind and ego. Rather fittingly for the spiritually minded George, this card is also connected to the third eye chakra. The general meaning of the King of Wands is one of leadership and aspiring others to creative achievement. He is loyal, optimistic, but a bit impulsive. Reversed, he can be a liar and a devious self-promoter. In this case, one subtle example of this was his inclusion of the Hare Krishna mantra into his songs, because he knew that people would sing along and therefore unwittingly pour their spiritual energy into the meaning of the words. George as the Knight of Wands. Confusingly, Crowley renamed the court cards in his Thoth deck, so the king becomes a knight and the knight becomes a prince. The Knight of Wands in the Thoth tarot demonstrates the mastery of growth and inner development. As a fire sign, he is linked to dynamic forward motion, increased insight, and forthcoming changes. He is holding the Ace of Wands, a torch with which he burns away all negativity that stands in his way. His flowing cape is made of flames. His helmet is adorned with a unicorn, whose horn is symbolic of the third eye. His vision is shown symbolically through him charging forward on his horse. This is a demonstration of decisive dealing with the outer world. This description seems to relate to George later in life. Once he had his own family and had established a more settled state of being, he probably would have continued in this vein had he lived past 58. George as the Ace of Clubs. The Ace of Clubs is connected with wealth, happiness, love, and peace of mind. As a card, it also indicates news connected to a business venture or money. Through his Hindu-aligned spirituality, I think George was definitely trying to find peace of mind. Eric Idle described George as one of the few morally good people that rock and roll has produced. In modern Cartomancy, this card has additional meanings of focus, direction, the exercise of will, legal papers, an institution, and someone else's home. This last point is interesting, given where he died, in one of Billy's homes. George as the Ace of Wands. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, the Ace of Wands is connected to the concept of inspiration. It is linked to the fire signs of the zodiac and the crown chakra. It indicates new beginnings, good news, and physically starting a new creative venture. It is full of passion, urgency, and potential talent. It shows growth, action, travel, excitement, and accepting a challenge. These concepts link back to the ideas expressed on the Ace of Clubs card. In particular, those connected to starting a new creative business. I think this could relate to his company, Handmade Films, through which he was the executive producer of dozens of films. Reversed, this card corresponds to missed opportunities and wasted potential. George as the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Wands in the Thoth Tarot represents the element of fire through its depiction of a flaming torch. This card shows the energies flowing after all blocks have been removed. It is a card of high energy, bursting out in all directions like lightning bolts. All previous securities and certainties will be destroyed by their impact. Once a focused plan and framework is known, transformation can occur. This card makes me think of the post-Beatles George trying to reinvent himself and move on with his life. In 1987, when talking about his Beatles biography, Philip Norman said that George had required supernatural forbearance to overcome his past. Paul as the King of Spades. Traditionally, the King of Spades is described as a mature man but still a live wire. He is popular, self-confident, and ambitious to the point of even being a risk-taker. However, he is successful and in a position of authority. Suggesting that Paul was ambitious to the point of being a risk-taker directs us to the idea that he was persuaded to seriously shorten his life in exchange of his glorious posthumous legacy. The imagery of the kings in this deck is a Turin shroud-like impression of the Beatles' faces, rather than actual pictures of them. This is particularly true of this image, which seems to imply the idea of a death mask. Since Paulism is meant to replace Christianity, this idea is not surprising. The colour of the king cards usually matches the elemental nature of the suit. Spades connect to the element of air. Here, though, the air is apparently dirty and dead. Paul as the King of Swords. In the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, the King of Swords is connected to the concept of truth. It is linked to the air sign of Libra and the planet of rebellious revolution, Uranus. It also corresponds to the third eye chakra. The King of Swords shows a man of intelligence who is cool, clear-thinking, and logical. He can maintain a sense of detached, discerning judgment to offer analytically balanced advice. Here, then, the playing cards and tarot meanings differ slightly. Paul was definitely a bright boy. Anyone who gets into grammar school without being tutored for years to pass the entry exam has to be. However, Paul's death for success agreement didn't display a great deal of good judgment. Of course, that's only true if that agreement actually occurred. Reversed, the King of Swords can be selfish, ruthless, and devious. He can also be overly cautious. Paul as the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords in the Thoth Tarot deck symbolizes the fiery aspect of air. He is goal-orientated and has ambition, with flexible intellectual powers. The Knight of Swords gallops forward, at one with his horse. The 4 propellers on his helmet refer to the 4 heavenly directions and indicate that the power of thought is not bound by space or time. The 3 swallows flying alongside him represent body, intellect, and spirit. His 2 swords symbolize the potential energies of yin and yang, which need to be used in balance in order to advance. Paul was certainly ambitious. He was studious too until he threw away his academic chances to be in a band with John. He didn't completely abandon all new learning though, as he was frequently photographed reading a book. According to the interview he gave to Maureen Cleave for the London Evening Standard on the 21st of March 1966, he even secretly took up music lessons in order to read and write music. The first thing he wrote was a piece for Jane Asher to play on her classical guitar. Paul as the Ace of Spades. Traditionally, the Ace of Spades is associated with great misfortune. This could be a difficult love affair, conflict, obsession, death, or some other kind of ending. In memoirs, it is described as the death card, and quite understandably ascribed to the departed Paul. In modern cartomancy, this card is as likely to mean a new beginning or rebirth as much as a death or ending. Likewise, it is associated with transformation, major life adjustments, the skull, the mind, and an important decision that brings about change and anxiety. All rather fitting connotations, given the nature of Paul's death and the alleged transmigration of his soul. Also, note the Egyptian-styled eyes on Paul in this image, whom the Cabal believes is Osiris. Paul as the Ace of Swords. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, the Ace of Swords is connected to the concept of clarity. It is linked to the air signs of the zodiac, Gemini, which was Paul's sun sign, Libra, and Aquarius, which is the new age that is being ushered in via bands like the Beatles. It is also linked to the crown chakra. The Ace of Swords corresponds to new ideas and plans, to mental clarity and breakthroughs. It relays the ideas of intense focus, vision, and realizing the truth. It also demonstrates the stimulation of people and communication. Paul was very interested in the murder of JFK, and even discussed this with Mark Lane, author of Rush to Judgment. His offer to write music for his film would have been career-ending, yet he still wanted to be involved because the truth seemed to matter to him. Reversed, the Ace of Swords has a lack of ideas and unclear thinking. It also signifies hostility and exploitation. Maybe this relates to the way that he was treated by the Cabal instead of, or additionally to, the way that Paul treated others. Paul as the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords in the Thoth Tarot deck symbolizes intellectual clarity, original thinking, brilliant powers of thought, and divine inspiration. On the sword is the Greek word for clarity. This is meant in the intellectual sense. The grip of the sword comprises of a coiled snake, 3 suns, and 2 crescent moons. The snake symbolizes transformation. This arrangement shows that the unconscious energies shown by the moons is coming into the light shown by the suns to become conscious energies. These concepts correspond to the idea that Paul was the reincarnated Osiris and that his soul was transmigrated into the living Horus, which was Billy. John as the King of Diamonds. Traditionally, the King of Diamonds is described as hot-tempered, obstinate, maybe even revengeful. He is stubborn but reliable. In modern Cartomancy, he is an intelligent, dynamic, and professional man. He is restless and energetic, and usually surrounded by money. He is influential and takes pride in his professional persona. If he is not careful, he can become consumed by his work to the point of neglecting other aspects of his life. Reading Cynthia Lennon's biography of John and watching interviews of his sons talking about him as a father, it's hard not to agree with much of this description as being applicable to John. The dominating colour of this card is green, because diamonds are connected to the earth signs of the zodiac, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. John as the King of Pentacles. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, the King of Pentacles is rooted to the idea of security. He is linked to the earth sign Taurus. He is also connected to the planet Jupiter, with its associations of expansion and prosperity. Like the other kings, he corresponds to the third eye chakra. Unlike the King of Diamonds, the King of Pentacles is rather less dynamic. The King of Pentacles is a successful businessman. Whilst he is enterprising and empire building, he is not a risk taker. He is, however, associated with high stakes and thriving, particularly financially. Reversed, the King of Pentacles is someone who mismanages money and is preoccupied with materialism. Perhaps here we are meant to think of the initial failure of the Apple Company and of John singing the Beatles song, "Money, That's What I Want." John as the Knight of Discs. The Knight of Discs in the Thoth Tarot is connected to the element of earth. He is a master of health and material abundance. On the card, it is harvest time. The knight holds a thresher to bring in the harvest. He and his horse have toiled hard to bring in the fruits of their efforts. The work has been worth it, though, as it has brought personal growth. The circles of light around his shield show the land with renewed creativity. The stag's head on his helmet emphasizes his expanded perception. His red-brown cape links his head to the earth, from which he gains spiritual powers. His spirit seeks freedom, but he knows that this is gained through his loving service to the earth and its dimensions. This card reminds me of John after the birth of his son Sean, when he became a house husband. He was fully committed to being a better parent to him than he had to Julian. He was only able to do this due to the wealth he had accrued from his years of toil through being in many bands, especially the Beatles. This also reflects John finally becoming aware that the system that he helped to succeed was being run by insane people for insane objectives. John as the Ace of Diamonds. The Ace of Diamonds indicates splendid but erratic good luck, an extraordinary event or situation, a piece of jewelry, like a ring, or news about money. In a reading, the nature of that news changes with the meaning of the neighbouring cards. In modern Cartomancy, the Ace of Diamonds additionally corresponds to new beginnings, fresh starts, and something brand new. Considering that John was the founding member of the Beatles, the above ideas seem to fit together well. They tie in with the event of him starting the Beatles as a band, especially after many false starts with other bands, and band renaming. John as the Ace of Pentacles. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, the Ace of Pentacles is linked to the concept of prosperity. It is linked to the earth signs of the zodiac and the crown chakra. The Ace of Pentacles is connected with financial new beginnings, including new jobs, new business, and new investments. It is associated with stability, abundance, and manifestation. Reversed, the Ace of Pentacles corresponds to a lack of money or poor financial control. It shows a lost opportunity or a lack of new ones. Perhaps the connection we are meant to make here is that the Beatles were John's band initially. That was a new financial beginning for everyone involved, but after Paul died and Billy replaced him, John wanted to give up because he'd lost his band as well as his friend. John as the Ace of Discs. The Ace of Discs in the Thoth Tarot deck is connected to the concept of wholeness. It represents the unification of the body and soul, the material with the spiritual, and heaven with earth. The symbols of this card are arranged in a cross, representing the integration of the vertical and the horizontal, the inner and the outer. This in turn shows the body and soul in harmonious union, with the body as the temple of the soul. There is a 7-pointed star and 2 pentacles surrounding the esoteric symbol 1/666, which represents completion. To meta-ophon means initiation or entrance. This is the entry to a new consciousness, which has inner and outer richness. The tree rings show the levels of this increasing consciousness. John sought wholeness in many different places but never found it. Eventually he wrote off all of his former beliefs as myths, including the Beatles myth. With that insight, I think if he had been allowed to live, he might finally have found wholeness. Ringo as the King of Hearts. The King of Hearts is described as a good-natured, paternal man, but may be hasty and rash. He is a mature man with an affectionate nature, who needs to love and be loved. In modern cartomancy, he is also seen as passionate, artistic, and romantic. He is protective, kind-hearted, and generous. He can also be lazy and moody. These ideas seem to align with both Billy and John's descriptions of Ringo. This description also aligns with that of the zodiac sign of Cancer, which is also Ringo's sun sign. The dominating purple-blue colouring of this card connects it to the water signs of the zodiac, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Ringo as the King of Cups. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, the King of Cups is coupled to the idea of emotional intelligence. He is linked to the water sign Pisces. He is also connected to the planet Neptune, with its associations of ideals and intuition. Like the other kings, he corresponds to the third eye chakra. The King of Cups is equated with trust, caring, healing, and good advice. He has a wealth of knowledge and understands unconscious motivations. He is in touch with his emotional life and is a good, stable friend. Reversed, the King of Cups can be a scheming fraud, an alcoholic, and a drug addict. He can be selfish and full of bad advice. Certainly Ringo has been described as the loving centre of the Beatles. He has also had his battles with addiction. This description reminds me of page 315 in Memoirs, where Ringo questions Billy's motives and integrity after the séance, where Paul's spirit allegedly said he would continue to love Jane Asher through Billy. Ringo as the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups in the Thoth Tarot deck is connected to the element of water. It demonstrates surrendering to beloved ones, a capacity for giving, and reaching higher emotional planes and spiritual relationships. The Knight of Cups soars upwards on his powerful white horse. His outstretched cup contains Cancer, the crab, which refers to any relationship, including spiritual ones. His beautiful blue wings suggest the uplifting of emotional exchanges and mutual understanding. The peacock of vanity, at the bottom on the right, without haughtiness, even offers its service to a higher purpose. The green of his armour symbolizes his highly creative ability to express his deep emotions. This card reminds me that Ringo is the most sentimental member of the Beatles. He published a book of postcards sent to him from the other Beatles from the 1960s through to the 1990s. And rather than writing an autobiography, he published a book of 240 photographs that he took, with captions to convey what his memories of his loved ones meant to him. Ringo as the Ace of Hearts. The Ace of Hearts indicates the emotional and physical base in each of us. This is usually the home and feelings of love and friendship to those in our daily environment. As such, The meaning of this card shifts in accordance with the neighbouring cards in a reading. In modern cartomancy, the Ace of Hearts also demonstrates happiness, a source of joy, and the start of emotional periods. It indicates the soul and positive energy. Again, Ringo being the heart and soul of the Beatles due to his good nature seems to align with the description of this card. Ringo as the Ace of Cups. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, the Ace of Cups is synonymous with the concept of outpouring. This is why the depiction is literally an overflowing cup. It is linked to the water signs of the zodiac, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Like the other aces, it is linked to the crown chakra. The Ace of Cups corresponds to new relationships, love, happiness, and fertility. The Ace of Cups can mean the cause of celebration, socializing, and an upsurge of new feelings. Reversed, this ace can mean sadness, pain, and unrequited love. It can express blocked or repressed emotions. It can also demonstrate infertility. This card reminds me of Ringo, talking about the last time he talked to John or George. He is the only member of the Beatles that I've seen cry in interviews when recalling his memories of the other Beatles. Even in the anthology TV series, he was the one who expressed how much he loved hanging out with his former bandmates. When it talks about pain and sadness, it also reminds me of the many illnesses he's had in his lifetime, particularly when he was young. Ringo as the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups in the Thoth Tarot deck shows overflowing love and emotional clarity. The white lotus is the symbol for love of a brotherly nature. The blue of the cup corresponds to the element of water. The brilliant energy beam passes from the ether above the cup to the waters below. As above, so below. The cup overflows with abundance from the boundless universe. It suggests openness and receptiveness to the all-embracing, omnipresent love of the cosmos. The Ace of Cups is the female counterpart to the Ace of Wands, demonstrating the transformative power of brotherly love. Ringo's lifelong slogan has always been peace and love. When asked what God is, he just answered, unconditional love. The Yellow Submarine Joker. The Joker is not usually a feature of a card reading using a playing card deck, but when it is drawn in a reading, it represents surprises and unexpected events outside the seeker's control, like an arranged road accident, perhaps. There are two Jokers in a deck. One can be used to indicate life and the other one death. Alternatively, these two cards can be used to represent any kind of duality or polarity. In this deck, one Joker has a black outline, seen here, and the other has a red outline, so they could easily be used in this way. The Joker in this deck shows a collection of British road signs with the following meanings: hazard, no entry, one way, roundabout, wild animals, and the top part of a traffic light sign. The blue and yellow sign appears to be the Joker, or odd one out, because it's not an official road sign. Is the fact that this Joker displays road signs connected to Paul's death in a car crash? The Fool. The Joker in a playing card deck relates to the Fool in a tarot deck. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, the Fool is shown as the hero at the beginning of his journey through life. At this early stage, the sun is still shining and he doesn't have a care in the world. He lacks wisdom, so in his enthusiasm, he is unwittingly about to walk off a cliff. This is despite the protestations of the little dog, barking warnings at his feet. Reversed, the Fool represents reckless and impulsive behavior. He is inexperienced and can also demonstrate fear of the unknown. When Billy first replaced Paul, he too was the Fool at the beginning of his journey. This was reflected in his song, Fool on the Hill. On the Kabbalah tree of life, the Fool relates to the path between Kether, crown, and Chokmah, wisdom. Its glyph is Aleph, which means ox. Rather fittingly, Billy was born in the year of the ox. In the Thoth Tarot deck, we will see the idea of the Fool completely expanded. The Fool. In the Thoth Tarot deck, the Fool is literally Dionysus, the god of the grape harvest and ritual madness. The spirals are a long umbilical cord, connecting the Fool in all four planes of human existence: spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical. We can see these planes through a number of symbols. Firstly, the heart shape of emotion. Next, the vulnerability of the dove with its spiritual sensitivity. The entwined snakes of the caduceus show health and healing. The children at the bottom illustrate relationships. Lastly, the biting tiger suggests our fears in life. He is countered by the crocodile of creative endurance and power, who symbolizes the Egyptian god Sobek. The Fool is holding a crystal cup and a burning torch, showing the alchemical union of fire and water. His horns represent his expanded perception. The rainbow behind his head is one of wholeness. The three flowers between his legs are mind, body, and spirit. In the background is the sun, with its transforming and creative qualities. The zodiac glyphs on coins show the opportunities to grow when creative energies are allowed full reign. That's the end of the analysis of the individual cards mentioned in Memoirs, but I thought it would be interesting to at least take a look at the other cards in the deck. Here are the twos from the Yellow Submarine playing card deck, and on each card are two Beatles, rather fittingly. It's interesting to note which pairs of Beatles are not featured. There is not an image of John and Paul together, and I was particularly surprised that there was no image of John and Paul together, since their mythology is all about them being the greatest songwriting duo of all time. There is also no image of Ringo and George together. Here are the threes, and they all display landmarks, some from Liverpool, some from Pepperland. The one on the far right for the Three of Hearts is the Liver Building. The fours each show the four Beatles. They're quite small on the diamonds card, but all four of them are standing on top of that head. The fives show some of the other supposedly good characters in the Yellow Submarine film. So from left to right we have Jeremy, the Lord Mayor, Old Fred, and the policeman at the beginning of the film who is looking for a lost cat called Paul. And interestingly, the middle two characters here are both flashing the horned hand sign. The sixes each display some kind of six in the middle, so that when you read the card diagonally across, it has an encoded 666. The sevens are all words, often to do with love. Even the one at the end for hearts, which says no, actually is no, K-N-O-W, but the K and the W have been cut off by the blue meanies. The eights show Pepperlanders. The nines show the Yellow Submarine itself through the various seas that it travels through. The tens also have the Beatles, and these match the aces and kings for each suit. I did think about doing individual slides for the 10 cards, but I didn't think it was worth it, because aces show an idea in its rawest potential form, and it goes through a journey through the number cards until it eventually gets to 10. And 10 shows the same ideas in physical manifestation at the end of that journey. And so conceptually, they don't mean anything different. They just show it physically manifested. The neighbouring cards in a reading will show you the specific details of that event. The jacks in the deck, very interesting. They all show the villains in the Yellow Submarine story. And so from left to right we have the four-headed bulldog, four-headed like the beast we started with, by the way. Then we have Glove, the Chief, Blue Meanie, and finally the Apple Bonker, or one of the Apple Bonkers. Apparently they're meant to have symbolized people at Apple above the Beatles in business who restricted their creative movements. And then finally we have the Queens in this Yellow Submarine playing card deck. The Queen of Diamonds is, of course, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and we know who she really is. She's Lucifer. I did wonder if the Queen of Clubs was actually meant to be the Scarlet Woman Babylon from Revelation. The Queen of Spades is a harpist. Maybe she's a harpist from heaven. And the Queen of Hearts, actually, bizarrely, looks like me. Red hair, blue eyes, pale skin. And on that note, I thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.